I'm also excited to finally get to see you again because we've kind of semi-crossed paths or tried to cross paths, or our paths would have crossed so many times, in the last couple of months, starting with Summit and then
Yeah,
Chicago and then here in Colorado.
it's a
How was
slippery slope.
yeah? How was your visit?
It was good. It was
Yeah.
really cool. I've been in Denver before, but I never really got to explore. Like the last time I was there, we were up in the mountains camping, so
Mhm.
I didn't really go into Denver.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was cool. It was for a birthday, so I got to meet people from all over the country that came out, and I ended up going to Oakwell Beer Spa.
I don't think I've heard of that. Is that in town?
Yeah, it's in town, and it's basically like a spa, and you go and you drink beer, and you get your own private room with a sauna and a kind of like almost like a hot tub, kind of, except they put hops in the water.
Okay, so it's got an added beer benefit.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like their whole thing is like using beer for health, and
yeah, kind of like Epsom salts. You usually put those in bath for whatever hops. It feels like it would have a similar property. Like, I was just reading about juniper berries and like all these natural little things that are out there that we use in everyday life that actually have very, health-oriented benefits as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was great. My partner took me there for my birthday because not only were we there for his cousin's birthday, but my birthday was like 2 days after we got back. So I'm like, I really want to do this for my birthday.
Awesome.
So
say the name again because I want to make sure I recommend it to friends. Oakwell.
Yep. It was a little bit expensive, but it was worth it. It was awesome. Most people, when you think South Bend, you think of Notre Dame.
Especially since last night, yeah.
Yeah, at least like when I talk to people and I'm like, where are you from? I'm like, Notre Dame. If you know where Notre Dame is, that's where I'm from.
That's an easy one. Yeah, we're South Bend. People might get it but some people might not. But if you just say, "Yeah, I'm next door to Notre Dame."
Yeah.
Yeah, Rudy.
Yeah. It was really great to watch them last night. So
that was a good game. Yeah, I put it on delay and then watched it to the end. There, it got a little late, but it was worth it. It was definitely a pretty exciting ending to a back and forth game.
I think it's gonna be a Midwest championship game.
I agree. I like the coach's story. It's kind of a fun story to root for. I have a friend who's a Penn State alum, and so I was okay with either outcome. Right. But I like the coach for Notre Dame. It kind of, like I said, it's a good story, and they seem to be a good team. So I'm excited to keep watching them move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely, you're well known, but I'll allow you the honor of introducing yourself to the group anyway.
All right. Yeah. Hi, I am Savannah Dill. I am a Power BI fanatic, I guess you can say. I've been in the Dynamics community now for 5 years, which is really hard for me to believe it's been like that long.
Clips by.
Yeah, it just went by so fast. But yeah, I started as a Power Platform consultant, and then I found out about Power BI, and that's kind of been my niche, my bread and butter ever since. So
yeah,
I really love educating about Power BI, and because I work for partners, it goes hand in hand with Business Central in my world. So my favorite spot is talking about Power BI, but also how you can extend Business Central with Power BI. So yeah.
So what were you doing before that? Like, what was your intro? Like, were you in IT? Were you a tech industry, or just kind of switched over from?
Kind of in the tech industry. So before I kind of broke into the Power Platform space, I had no idea what the Power Platform was. I had never heard of it. I had never written any kind of code. I was actually in college getting my master's degree at Ball State. And I was getting my master's in emerging media design and development, which is a really long title for product design, UX design. So, that was the kind of path I went down.
Yeah. So artistic kind of, you have more of an artistic leaning?
Yeah, yeah, I was thinking product design, I was thinking graphic design, marketing,
Mhm.
all of these things I really enjoyed doing. And when I first came to the Power Platform community, I think that background was intriguing, to my previous mentor, especially when you start thinking about like design architecture and creating a Power App,
Mhm.
specifically is a great example. Because you can have your more structured or you can have your more free flowing, and that's something that initially attracted me to the Power Platform. Is I can make an app. I have no traditional development experience, but I can still do that, and I can still apply what I learned in school. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I found very similar. I had career after career out of high school, didn't go to college, but really artistic leaning. And so when I moved to Colorado, I thought I'm going to get a degree in art and become a graphic artist because I love doing art, just kind of doodling. And I just felt like this is something I could take to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got here, started working at an apparel firm and in their art department, doing some odds and ends stuff and waiting to get in-state tuition rates. And in the meantime, the people in the art department were like, you better think about it. You don't make a lot of money as an
Yeah.
artist. So maybe just as you're waiting, give it some thought. And
Mm-hmm.
much like you just said, I thought, okay, let me think about it. I was technically, I've been playing around with computers too, building computers, just,
Yeah.
here and there for my own use, just, as I was moving through that technology age, in the early 90s. And I decided, you know what? Let me do this. Let me just go into IT because to your point, I can still be creative. I can get a degree in development. There's a lot of creativity there. It suits my problem solving mentality. So I think you'd find a lot of people like that who have that crossover
Mm-hmm.
skill set of being creative and being technical, which is kind of neat.
Right. Yeah. No, it's great, and I think one thing, as a graphic designer, you're doing a lot of branding. You still have the flexibility and creativity there, but one thing I've really learned to love with the Power Platform and even Power BI, just if we're talking just Power BI, um, there's no ceiling really. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the platform is constantly evolving, and you can always learn something. I'm an MVP for Power BI. Does that mean I know everything? No. Like, I see things every single day, and my mind is blown, with what people are
Yeah.
doing and like, how they might have solved this problem. And I'm like, wow, I never thought of it that way. So it really provides an interesting day to day. And also, like, in the case of Power BI, every business is ran different. Their needs for analytics are different, and how they do their business can affect how you build their report. So pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I early on learned like the number one rule, like was, and not that I was ever super arrogant, but after a couple of years of experience in tech support, you could easily fall back on, oh, that's never going to happen, or that, kind of that mindset of not that you know everything, but it's just you don't rely on the fact that it's such a broad
Yeah.
subject, IT in general. So whether it's Power BI and so yeah, I always go into that with that same philosophy of I probably know very little, like in the
Right.
scope of all the stuff
Exactly.
I know, which is maybe more than another person, but still, it's so broad that my knowledge is even pretty curbed, and so I always carry that with me, and as I go into situations, like yeah, let's check it out. I don't know, maybe it happens. Let's look at it and see, and yeah, you're right, let's do it. Kind of mentality because it always serves much better than trying to close that door to this is never going to be the case or no way.
Right. I think as like, someone that's very involved in community and creating content, um, it's easy to have like imposter syndrome. I posted about this the other day on LinkedIn. Like sometimes I'm just like, what am I doing? Like,
100% every day. I'm telling you, it's like that's the real feeling of why am I even here? Some mornings like, is it really? I mean, and then kind of push it aside and keep on moving.
yeah.
So, geographic skills. You have a blog. Did you create your own graphics for that,
Yeah.
or did you have somebody? Nice. It seemed like that would be the case.
Yeah.
If you've got those skill sets lurking back there, then you created your own talk a little bit about that guy. I love the the
Yeah.
connection, the name, and the I've shared this with you, I think, privately. I don't know if I've shared it out in a podcast, but at some point, like, Pickle was a name like somebody would call in my family, like kind of a goofy name, like,
Yeah.
you crazy old whatever. And so my niece called me that one time in front of her daughter, my grandniece, and so she's called me Uncle Pickle ever since. So so that's my name with all my nieces and nephews on that side of the family now.
That's,
So that I resonate to the pickle, so it's kind of
that's
funny.
awesome. It's funny because, like, in my day to day, some people are like, "Hey, dill pickle," and I'm like, but people close to me, especially my partner, he actually calls me Squirrel. So no relation to pickles or anything. Like,
Zero relation to pickles. Uh, Although it'd be funny to see a squirrel with a pickle. I mean, because squirrels love to, it's like, could you imagine just like
next
looking out and
my
there's,
next boy,
yes, just put a pickle out and see which squirrel grabs it so you can get a picture for that. So
Yeah.
yes, you just embrace that. So, but like, I figured I was going to ask that because I've grown up with the last name Small,
Mm.
all my life. So, and being short is one thing. It's like I had to kind of embrace and own my name
Yeah.
or die by it, right? And so I figured the same. You've got the last name Dill. I'm sure you were hearing that on and off
Yeah.
growing up.
Lots,
Hopefully not as much still, but
lots of pickle jokes. No, not as much. And I think it's going to be very weird, one day when I get married, like, what am I going to do? My last name isn't going to be Dill anymore. Like, I can't make the pickle jokes anymore.
like, you have to can you hyphenate it? Is there a good hyphenation that's gonna work?
Yeah, but I probably won't. But
Yeah. It's not like your partner's last name is Bread and Butter or something else, that would somehow fit in. Spicy Dill, yeah, there we go.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So I run Not a Pickle. It's a blog slash whatever, I guess I want to create, but primarily a blog, and I do social content mostly on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
The idea kind of came to me to create this blog because not only would I thought it would be a great way to push out as much content as I could. You can also create a diverse amount of content and have it kind of housed in one place.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that. And then as far as like creating the name, it's funny, I was actually talking to Belinda Allen, very early on. I don't even think I was an MVP yet. And I was like, hey, I kind of want to I want to do this, like, and she said, have a creative name. And I was like, okay, what can I do to, be recognizable?
Mhm.
Not only for myself personally, but have like my online presence. So, um, you know, I thought a lot about my appearance. I thought about everything, and ultimately, my last name is, Dill Pickle, not a pickle. And then, when people say I'm in a pickle, have you heard that
Yeah.
phrase?
Oh yeah. Great old adage. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, well, how do you get out of a pickle? I want to make people not in a pickle. And
I love it. Yeah, it's great backstory.
yeah,
And the fact that it's not a pick. I mean, yeah, the whole thing's just, and to your point, like, just having one place. And I loved your advent calendar
yeah,
idea. That was really fun to kind of watch that unfold and just have a great way to to communicate and uplift other folks in the community. That was a really fun way to go about that.
yeah, absolutely. I definitely can't take all the credit for the advent calendar. I had the housing and I helped develop that, but Marcel and I are actually, Marcel came to me and he was like, hey, we should do something like this. And I'm like, I know how we could do that.
Awesome. That's the fun part about collaborating and the fun
Yeah,
part about community and getting to know different folks and finding the chemistry and being able to create some pretty cool stuff.
yeah, it's so bizarre. Like, a lot of people, when I try to explain what I do for work, even my friends, they're like, yeah, I have no idea what you do for work. I hear that all the time.
I think Josh Knox did a great blog one time a couple years ago about how he answers that question, because he would get in trouble. Like, he's a consultant, F&O consultant. He would start to try to explain it and people's eyes glaze over and they're all of a sudden looking at their phone. You're like, okay, I got to come up with a really concise,
Right,
easy to consume answer for this.
right. So, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
You were talking about what you do as a daily life and how you explain it.
Yeah. There was another point there, but it's gone. So
I'm sorry. I'm a derailer. I'm the worst. That should be my like evil like genius name. Ah, there he is again, the derailer. Get out.
it was there. It'll probably come back. We'll circle back. But
But I was going to ask you about what your day to day is like as a Power BI Power Platform, Power BI developer.
mhm.
Just share with the community what that's like. Like, you know, so somebody looking to get into the industry, kind of what do you do on a daily basis that excites you, that's fun, that, you know, or not fun,
Yeah.
but you know, what's that day like?
So day to day, first and foremost, I'm a consultant. Um, Primarily, I get all types of projects, but like I said, my main house, if you will, like if there was a Harry Potter sorting hat for the Power
Hmm.
Platform, it would be Power BI for me.
Stop right there. I'm going to derail you. Do you have a house? Because I went through this exercise with a coworker. She made me go through it. It's like a really serious, like 40 question,
Oh
hour long
my.
quiz thing that I had to do to figure out what house I was in.
Can you guess my house? I do have a house.
I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna guess it's Hufflepuff.
Yes, it is.
I don't even know why. It's like I don't guess this on a regular basis on a grind. I'm not going out and like pointing people. Hey, I'm gonna guess your house. So I have zero experience. I just guessed. Can you get? You can take a guess at mine then.
Ooh, I also kind of want to say you're a Hufflepuff.
I would have thought that too. I was Ravenclaw.
That would be my second guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Not quite squeaky clean enough to be a Gryffindor, but the Ravenclaw seemed to fit. I think, and I think I would fit well in Hufflepuff too.
Yeah, I was kind of you know, torn between the two houses. I could see myself fitting in there
Yeah,
both.
yeah.
It's kind of funny, like on social media, maybe like a year or two ago, it was like a trend showing like the house parties of the
Okay.
houses, and I'm
Yeah, yeah,
like, Gryffindor would be all loud and rowdy, and here's Hufflepuff, just like everyone's vibing, having a good time. Music
super
isn't too
chill.
loud. You can still have
Yeah,
a conversation. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
I love it. So now, if we can get back to where I derailed us from,
Yeah, we're
you were
talking
just
about
starting
the
to
day
talk.
to
You
day.
were just starting to talk about your if you had a house.
Yes. My Power Platform house is Power BI.
Cool.
Which, arguably now, like, is it Power Platform? Is it Fabric? Meh,
And it was the OG when you get down
right,
to it. Like Power came out, Power BI was the
right,
OG of Power Platform.
right. So I still say yes. But anyway, so, I'm a consultant. I work with clients on creating reports primarily that helps elevate their business. I'm solving business problems. I'm making something more efficient. I hear time and time again that, you know, we're spending too much time and we're spending too much money on this process. How can you make it better? Um, or if I do create a report, I've had clients be shocked. Like, that number can't be right. Like
I
whether
hate
it be
that.
good or
Yeah,
bad, you know?
yeah. You
Um,
have to justify all of a sudden all the data and numbers behind it.
right,
Been there plenty of times. Salespeople in particular are like, "Oh, I have way more sales than that." I was like, "Okay, well, let's look at the numbers together." Yeah,
right,
yeah. Back to our earlier conversation. Maybe I am wrong. Let's take a look.
right. So it's really fun to, do that kind of thing. So in my day to day, not only am I helping clients, I provide training, how you can get into the Power Platform, how you can extend Business Central with Power BI. These are all kind of topics I really love to educate on.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean that's my typical day to day in a nutshell. Which if you crack open the nut, there's a lot more.
Always a lot of stuff in the nut for sure. Yeah, because I was going to ask, like, how often are you driving the conversation? Like, they just
Hmm.
dial you up and say, "Hey, Savannah, we need something." Boom, that's all you get. Or, is there a good interaction? Or just again, just went through a mentorship with TechFluent, and a lot of the questions were like, "What do I do as a consultant? How does this work?" And I was trying to coach them. I've done all sides of it across my career. But lovely to hear from somebody who's doing it day to day again, like you. Just to share, is there a balance between how much a client is giving input and how much you're driving the conversation? Is that equal? Is it unbalanced?
I think it's evolved as I have gained experience. So early on, I don't want to say early on in being a woman, but I think that definitely played a role very early on in my career where, I would talk to clients and I would be a bit more timid. I would let them kind of lead the conversation more and maybe not always asking the right kinds of questions. Which would then later lead to, okay, I have to go back and ask, or, because you never want to assume anything.
Yeah.
So, early on, I feel like it was very not balanced. And as my career has progressed, I think I've done a very excellent job at becoming like a strong woman leader in the fact that, I can direct a conversation. I can go to the C-suite of an organization and talk. It doesn't matter, if they're men or women or whatever. I can have a conversation with anyone, and ultimately, I like to keep it balanced. So, I kind of have like a mental checklist when I first get introduced to a client. I think one thing that's really important is introducing yourself and establishing yourself as someone they can trust. Talk about your experience. Talk about, maybe passion projects. Make yourself human in a way.
Yeah.
And maybe, first starting out, you don't have all the experience, but that's fine. Like, maybe you're working towards a certification or, just introduce yourself, make yourself an ally for the organization. And then, let them explain their use case. Let them talk about how are they currently doing things, what they'd like to improve, what are their pain points in their current process. And also another really important question as far as reporting goes is, what are they currently doing?
Yeah.
A lot of organizations use Excel sheets, and a lot of the times they're very, I don't want to say like outdated, but like they're like 10-year-old files that are extremely bloated, very slow, not efficient. So
People are reticent to give up their Excel.
Yes.
For sure. I mean, Excel is going to be around longer than Twinkies, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's not going away, but you can help and you can use it efficiently and you can transition some of it.
Right. Yeah, I don't think Excel is a bad tool.
No.
A lot of people, in data are like Power BI, Power BI, Power BI, and ultimately, like Power BI is not always going to be the best tool. It has its use cases, and during this process, you're not only evaluating, okay, how can I help, but also, is this the right tool?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something I've kind of learned over my career as well. Knowing when to say no. As someone who's young and, kind of finding their place in the professional world, it's very easy to want to say yes to everything.
100%. Yeah, that's a hard one, especially for folks like you. You can tell who's out there who has this we'll call it an issue. It's a good issue to have, but it can be a demonstrative one for a person if you're not careful. And not, protecting your time to some degree because, you want to give and give and give, and there's just only so much to give before you stretch too thin.
Right. And, that's not only true with client work, but anyone that's aspiring to, create community content or speak at a conference. Like, just because you're presented with an opportunity doesn't mean you always have to, say yes to that opportunity.
Yeah.
And sometimes I still find myself, now 5 years in, saying yes too much. But I think it's just something you learn over time and get better at.
You're right. I mean, there's never a point where it's like, oh, I made it. Now everything I do is perfect. Like back to it's like, I continue to prune. Like you said, it's like, oh, I've got too much going on. I need to prune something somewhere because I'm not going to give my full attention to it otherwise. And that's not a good thing. One thing that I know you're passionate about is mentorship, and how refreshing is it that instead of you going to a department and feeling like they weren't taking you seriously, that somebody recognized your passion and desire and uplifted you and said, hey, here's a person that really wants to grow and learn. And instead of making them feel like they don't know what they're talking about, let's embolden that and make it a person that's going to, in a week, month, 2 years from now, whatever, just be crushing it out there, with all the confidence and in the world.
Right. I think there needs to be, a certain degree of confidence instilled, in ambition as well. I probably wouldn't be as happy with my role either professionally or in the community if it wasn't for my ambition to do things, talk to people, network, try to speak at conferences, speak at my first conference and, be extremely scared. And now it's fine,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been really a crazy awesome ride, especially as I've grown in the community. It's really awesome when someone says, hey, your blog post helped, or they'll come up to me at a conference to be like, I know you and I have questions, and it feels good to be able to help.
100% love. That's my favorite part is, if I can make a connection or assist some, that's just the icing on doing something I love, a lot. And giving people opportunity, to your point, sometimes the ambition's there, but it's just slightly under the surface. You don't know. And so you give them an opportunity to speak, or you give them an opportunity to be on a podcast or blog or whatever it is. And then boom, it helps them to open up that avenue to the ambition that was just sitting there waiting to be exposed, and then they run with it. And that's also fun to see. Like, people, I'm sure you've got those folks in your life that you've assisted in some way that now you see them kind of cruising along down the road, and they're helping, and they're begetting the next versions, which is, again, just the awesome part about community.
Yeah, it's been really great. I've had mentors. I've mentored myself. So it's really fun to watch people break into the community and excel, and yeah, definitely an enjoyable part. And anyone that wants to break into the community or speak, my advice to you would be just try. If you're intimidated by the fact of maybe trying to speak at a conference, that's where networking can come into play, and you can make connections because, there's so many individuals I know, in this community, or in the dynamics community in general, that they'd be willing to speak with you or collaborate. Or if you have a funky project you want to do, just ask. Most people will say yes.
Yeah. I remember back, again, I've been in the community for, my first event was in 2010. And my first leader meeting was 2013 in Colorado. So I've been doing community stuff and kind of intimately involved since then. And whether or not it was perceived or not, this was my feeling. Early on, like say back in 2014, I didn't get the feeling that MVPs were easy to approach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I may be wrong, and I would, happy to hear from any of those folks, but it just didn't seem. It was a much smaller group, obviously, and so they were harder to see and get to. But the access level just wasn't the same as it is today. There's a website that's encouraging to reach out to them. There's more and more folks that kind of climb that ladder to get to that MVP status are reaching back out and saying, no, 100%. Reach out to me for that funky project or whatever goofy idea you have, that you want to get to. I'd love to, help you or give you advice. Or so I feel like that's just I don't know. I couldn't pinpoint the time it turned, but there was a turning point, in my opinion, where I think the right people who kind of grew up through the community started to get into that zone and really help out.
Right.
Folks like yourself. I just think that just core group of people that love to help has changed that mentality.
I think that comes to with, the, how do I put it? The growth of organizations like Dynamics User Group, it kind of makes everyone accessible in different ways. And allows you to interact
Yeah.
so like easily, whether it's virtually or in person. So yeah,
More
it's
companies are
awesome.
getting involved. Microsoft's involved.
Right.
You got multiple communities, through Microsoft, through DCI, through Doug. Just there's so much community activity. And like you said, Savannah's here. She's here. She's here. She's accessible here. She's talking to people. And when it just really gets this spider network that it's easy to get caught up into the net and be excited
Right.
about sticking around. So
Yeah.
I had a question for you. If you can, if you can't think of something off the top of your head, but just anything that sticks out, just a fun project that you remember that was like a wow moment, or it was a big, just a huge win for a company, or anything you can share that was just a really fun project to work on.
Yeah. One that sticks out in my head is actually I was working with a small nursery, like a greenhouse. They did shrubs, they did trees, they did bushes, they did flowers, they did all these types of things, and they came to me looking for a way to manage their inventory. So in Business Central, they utilized bins, and basically the bins correlated to plots in their field. So like bin
Okay.
1A would be like, X amount of trees, etc. So at first I was going to just build them like a standard inventory report. They could break it down, they could drill through, they could see all the cool visuals related to what trees are where. But then they threw a curveball and said, "Oh yeah, we use hand scanners in the field, and as our workers are kind of plucking these trees out and shipping them off, we scan them. It goes to Business Central, and it updates, to show us, what inventory is where, what trees need to be pulled first, that kind of thing." So that was a little bit of a curveball because it was just an added element. But it actually caused me to, do research, find out what kind of visuals. And I found this visual, and I wrote blog posts on this because I still think it's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
It's called Synoptic Panel Designer, and it's a visual by OKViz, and it's a free visual that you can put into Power BI. And basically, what I did is I had this nursery give me maps of their fields, like an aerial view of all their fields, and I drew on them, and I correlated their plots to bins in
Okay.
Business Central, and then I imported that to Power BI. And the cool thing with this visual then is you can kind of map out the plots so they become interactive and clickable buttons. So if they clicked on plot 1A on their map, then all the tabular and visual data would pop up related to that plot. So that was a really, really cool project because I was like, I didn't even know this was possible in Power BI. And, there's so many people in the community that create custom visuals,
Hmm.
and that kind of just opened the door. But
Yeah.
it was really cool to see like how interactive Power BI can be. Like at that point, that report didn't look like a report; it looked like a website or a portal that they could log on to,
Gotcha.
which was really awesome. Yeah. So
Really cool. I'm gonna make sure I grab, if you have a link to that blog, share it with me, because I'd love to put it in the chat below when we release this, so folks
yeah,
can just do a little bit more research and check that out, because I think it sounds like a fun way to solve a problem and learn at the same time, kind of everything you
mm-hmm.
talked about, just kind of advancing your own and also learning about something new, and how to visualize something. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I could see its use case being used for things like I used it for, but maybe also warehousing, and um, there's just so many. Like if you have an image, you can map on top of it, which is
Yeah,
yeah.
love it. Yep, definitely a mind blown moment. Yep, I've had plenty of those over my career. They're always fun. I mean, and I don't know if you're like me, but a lot of times in programming and analyzing and stuff, those mind blown moments don't always come in the moment. A lot of times they're in the middle of the night or, the next day, but they're just as impactful the minute you realize that's going to be a great solution. It's fun to
Yeah.
kind of ride that wave back into the project because, oftentimes I learned, when you get frustrated, definitely set it aside, and that aha moment will come along pretty quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then again, you can just, kind of ride that on back in.
It's crazy how like external factors can influence your work. In my free time, I also play Dungeons and Dragons, so I think this is a great example. I was in a campaign that lasted 3.5 years, and
Wow.
a lot of my ideas for my character actually came to me in dreams. So a lot of people say things like, "Oh, like I had a thought or I had a dream about this." Like, sometimes it can come to you in the most unexpected places. Sometimes for people, that's the shower, or like
Anywhere. So one of the things I learned about, to our earlier discussion about should I be a creative artist, should I do something in IT, I ultimately thought, well, I can still be creative. I still do creative things. I can write, I can draw, I can play music, I can create things. And if I am in a mode of creation, I was carving something one day. I just started carving, and I ended up carving Sammy Davis Jr. I don't know why. As I was carving, it started looking like him, so I just kept carving at it. Right? So I got it done, and I realized, okay, well, I want to put a martini glass in his hand. But I was trying to carve one, and it wasn't working out really well. It's just too thin, and I just like, what can I get? And I didn't know, so I popped off to like an arts and crafts store like Michael's, and I'm going to walk around until I see something that sparks an idea. And so I eventually, just in the most banal area, looked at a box of clear push pins. And their shape is very martini-like. And so
yeah.
I ground it down a little bit so that it thinned out the bottom, and I ground out the inside, and I put a little olive in it, and boom, I had my idea. And so to your point, it's like you never know. Like I love to. My favorite thing is to walk around a thrift store and just get if I want to get ideas. Usually there's something there that'll materialize for me, which is again a fun way to go about those aha moments. You never know where they come, and for everybody, like you said, it's different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and being in community too. Especially if you're active on LinkedIn, I see people post things all the time, and I'm like, wow, like.
Yeah, my save button is my save button's on a constant like rotation, like save, share, save, because there's so many, and with our kind of our growing audience and contacts, it gets harder and harder because every day I'm finding stuff I want to follow up on or read, and it's like, when am I going to find the time to do all this?
Right.
Because there's so much, like I said, so much good content. Anything we didn't talk about, I covered a lot, and I want to be careful of our time. Anything that you want to share that we hadn't talked about?
I think the only other thing is about getting involved in community. I know that everyone knows there's so many ways that you can get involved, but one way that I really like to promote, especially lately, would be meetups. Whether it's a Dynamics user group meetup for individual states or countries, or like a regional meetup. There's also so many other good things on the meetup platform that you can do locally. Here in South Bend, they do a Tech Tuesday, and it's people from not only this community but the technology community, so you can have some like really interesting conversations with people about what
is that virtual or is that
local.
in person? Local, so it's a local in person event every Tuesday.
It was the third Tuesday.
Okay.
Yep.
It's kind of like Sequel Saturdays, but
yes.
Taco Tuesday. Hopefully they're serving tacos because that feels like this should be a thing too.
Yeah.
Tech Taco Tuesday.
That's a great idea. Let's make a virtual meetup where everyone eats tacos and talks.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I love it.
But yeah, meetups are great, and taking advantage of all the free opportunities to learn within the community, I think, is also something really important.
Yeah, there's a ton. You mentioned Indiana. You've got a lot I feel like you had like a week. Are you doing like almost? I feel like a weekly going on. I was looking at upcoming events, and I was, as I'm trying to promote them
Yeah.
on the socials, like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to put a rapid fire, promotion, carousel on this one because you've got just kind of event after, which is cool. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah. We're doing a Power BI extravaganza for the month of January. So
Yeah, cool.
every single week we have 1 to 2 speakers talking about different aspects of Power BI. And, the people that are speaking range from Microsoft employees to MVPs to, just other community superstars. So really fun event. Like, I've really enjoyed putting that together.
Yeah, that's awesome. By the time this airs, you'll be well into it or close to the end of it. But I'll promote it, in the past, like Marty McFly. I'll be promoting it, before this airs, just to make sure people are seeing it.
Yeah. And, it's just a fun concept. I love the word extravaganza. Like,
Anytime you can use extravaganza. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Any synonym for having fun, and that has a Z in it. That's like a classic fun letter to say in any word almost. Bonanza, extravaganza. It's got a flair.
Maybe I should have called it the Power BI Banana Ganza because Savannah Banana.
I love it. Cool. Well, I appreciate having you on. To your point, you've got a lot going on, and I appreciate you being here to share your story and hopefully encourage other folks to, like you said, join community, get a new job, get out there and be confident. I mean, so much to unpack for somebody getting involved or starting their career or, learning more about what we do in the Microsoft Power Platform Dynamics world.
This was great. Thanks for having me.
Cool. And I look forward to seeing you soon in person, hopefully for real, as we bounce around from event to event. I'm just getting my event schedule put together. So, hopefully there'll be some in-person chatter as well.
Yep. I'd love to see it. So you should send that to me.
Exactly. Showers.
Get out of my PJs.
I'm such a blue collar, white collar worker when you're working at home.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm still in like cutoff shorts, by the way. That's standard issue wear around the house.
Yeah, I got sweatpants on still. So
nice.